The words coming out of Buckingham Palace this time felt different. Not softer. Not reassuring. Different in a way that made people stop scrolling and actually read every line twice. Because when the palace chooses phrases like extended treatment and indefinite absence, it's never accidental. Those words are signals. And this time, they suggested something far more serious than the public had been prepared for. 4 months. People believed the hardest part was already behind Catherine. Princess of Wales, the narrative was clear and carefully managed. A planned surgery, a precautionary treatment, a slow but hopeful recovery. Brief appearances that seemed to confirm everything was moving in the right direction. But today's announcement quietly dismantled that story. Without dramatic language or explicit details, it revealed that the situation has taken a turn few wanted to imagine. And once you understand how royal communication works, it becomes impossible to ignore what's really being said when the palace first spoke about Catherine's health earlier in the year. Everything was framed to calm public concern. The surgery in January was described as successful. The condition was initially said to be non-cancerous. Then came the carefully worded update in March, when Catherine herself appeared on camera to explain that tests had discovered cancer, and that she would undergo what was described as preventative treatment. That word did a lot of work. Preventative implies caution. It implies control. It implies that the danger has already been neutralized. At the time, many took comfort in her composure. She spoke calmly. She smiled softly. She reassured parents watching at home that she was focusing on recovery and her family. It felt honest. It felt hopeful. And most people accepted that explanation without question. But looking back now, that language feels less like reassurance and more like protection. Protection not just of the public, but of 3 young children who were suddenly living with a reality no parent ever wants to explain. As spring turned into summer, Catherine largely disappeared from public view. Kensington Palace released occasional photographs, birthday portraits, carefully staged family moments. Each image seemed designed to say, she's still here. She's still okay. But even then, some royal watchers noticed subtle changes. Her appearances were rare. Her weight visibly dropped. Engagements she would never normally miss were quietly removed from schedules. And when she did appear, the outings were brief, tightly controlled, and followed by long stretches of silence. Still, optimism held. Especially after Catherine released another video later in the year announcing that she had completed chemotherapy. The word completed sparked relief across the country. To many, it sounded like an ending, like a victory. The footage showed her outdoors with William and the children, laughing, walking, smiling in a way that felt genuine. But there was something in the wording that stood out to those listening closely. She said treatment had ended. She did not say the cancer was gone. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Behind the scenes, according to reports from palace insiders speaking anonymously, medical teams were growing increasingly concerned. Follow-up scans weren't delivering the clarity doctors had hoped for. Instead of clean results, there were areas that required more imaging, more tests, more waiting. And waiting in situations like this is often the most terrifying part. Because silence from doctors doesn't mean nothing is happening. It usually means something is still being figured out by late autumn. That uncertainty had turned into something more concrete. It's been said that additional scans revealed signs that treatment hadn't fully achieved its goal. Not necessarily dramatic progression, but enough to raise serious concern. Enough to prompt discussions about next steps. More aggressive options. Longer timelines. And realities that could no longer be softened for the sake of public reassurance. That's when today's announcement became inevitable. Royal correspondents were quick to point out how rare it is for the palace to use language this open-ended. An indefinite step back from duties isn't a pause. It's an admission that there is no clear timeline. And in royal terms, that's significant. Catherine isn't just another working royal. She's the future queen consort. Her presence represents stability, continuity, and the modern image of the monarchy itself. Her absence creates a void that can't easily be filled. Almost immediately, online speculation exploded. Social media flooded with concern, theories, and rumors. Some suggested complications. Others questioned whether earlier updates had downplayed the severity of the diagnosis. It's important to say clearly that much of this remains unverified. The palace has not disclosed specific medical details, and any claims circulating online should be treated with caution. But the sheer volume of concern tells its own story. People sense that this is no longer a routine recovery. Beyond the headlines, though, the real story is unfolding inside the Wales family. Prince William has been forced into a role no future king is ever trained for. Not just supporting a spouse through serious illness, but doing so under constant public scrutiny, while protecting 3 children from fear they aren't ready to carry. Reports suggest William has dramatically reshaped his daily life. School runs, bedtime routines, quiet evenings at home. Responsibilities that matter far more than royal schedules, but that come at an emotional cost few can imagine. The children, by all accounts, are being shielded as carefully as possible. George is old enough to sense when things aren't right. Charlotte has reportedly become more attentive and protective. And Louis, still so young, feels the shift even if he can't fully understand it. The family has reportedly consulted specialists on how to communicate honestly without overwhelming them. It's a balance no parent gets perfect, especially when the future feels uncertain. The strain doesn't stop there. King Charles is facing his own health challenges, making the situation even more complex, while his condition has been described as manageable. Watching his daughter-in-law battle, something more aggressive has reportedly taken a visible toll. According to those close to the family, private conversations between Charles and William have grown more frequent, more personal, and more urgent. This is no longer just about duty. It's about survival, emotional and otherwise. The broader monarchy is feeling the pressure too. With Catherine stepping away indefinitely, responsibilities are being redistributed. Princess Anne has quietly increased her workload. Prince Edward and Sophie have taken on more appearances. But there are limits. The slimmed-down monarchy model suddenly looks fragile. When multiple senior figures are dealing with serious health issues at the same time, there simply aren't enough people to absorb the weight indefinitely. And that leads to questions no one wants to ask out loud. What happens if Catherine's recovery takes years instead of months? What if she's never able to return to royal life the way she once did? What does that mean for William, for their children, and for an institution built on continuity and image? These aren't predictions. They're uncertainties. And uncertainty is what today's announcement truly delivered medically. Experts speaking generally about similar cases explain that when initial treatments don't fully resolve the issue, doctors often have to escalate. That can mean combining therapies, extending treatment durations, or exploring newer approaches like targeted treatments or immune-based options. These paths can offer hope, but they also come with heavier side effects and longer recovery times. It's a grueling road, even with the best care available. And while Catherine has access to world-class treatment, resources don't erase fear. They don't eliminate exhaustion. They don't make the quiet moments easier when the cameras are gone and the reality settles in. What they do offer is possibility. And right now, possibility is what the family is holding on to. Faith has reportedly become an anchor during this time. Private moments of reflection, support from trusted figures, a sense of grounding when outcomes can't be controlled, whether one shares those beliefs or not. It's hard to deny the strength people draw from them when everything else feels uncertain. What happens next remains unclear. Palace sources suggest treatment plans are still being adjusted. Public appearances are off the table for now. Updates will likely be limited, but more transparent than before. The goal seems to be balancing privacy with honesty. Something the palace hasn't always managed well in the past, no matter how this chapter unfolds. It has already reshaped how people see Catherine, not as an untouchable royal figure, but as a mother, a partner, and a woman facing something terrifying with quiet strength. Titles fade quickly when life narrows down to what truly matters. And right now, what matters isn't protocol or ceremony. It's time. It's health. It's family. This announcement wasn't an ending. It was an acknowledgement that the fight is ongoing. That certainty doesn't exist yet. And that behind the palace gates, a family is navigating the same fear, hope, and resilience that millions of others have faced before. The difference is only the spotlight. And sometimes even that fades when the story becomes deeply, undeniably human. As the days move forward, the focus inside Kensington Palace has narrowed to the essentials. Schedules have been stripped back. Public expectations quietly reset. What once revolved around long-term planning and ceremonial duty has been replaced by short-term decisions based on energy levels, medical advice, and emotional bandwidth. Sources suggest that every upcoming week is now treated as its own chapter, planned cautiously and adjusted constantly as circumstances change. There's also a noticeable shift in how information is being shared. In the past, silence was often the palace's preferred tool, letting speculation burn itself out. But this time, silence only made things worse. That's why today's statement, while restrained, was more direct than many expected. It wasn't meant to alarm, but it also wasn't designed to comfort. It was meant to prepare. Prepare the public for absence. Prepare institutions for adjustment. And prepare everyone for the possibility that the road ahead won't be simple or short. For Catherine herself, this phase is about endurance more than optimism. Hope still exists, but it's no longer framed as a finish line. It's framed as persistence. Getting through the next appointment, the next round of decisions, the next conversation with her children where she reassures them without making promises she can't guarantee. That kind of strength doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet. It looks ordinary. And that may be the most powerful part of her story right now. William's world has narrowed too, though in a different way. Publicly, he remains composed, steady, present. Privately, those close to him describe a man carrying immense pressure with very little space to release it. Future king, husband, father, protector. There's no manual for balancing those roles under normal circumstances, let alone when the person you rely on most is fighting a serious illness. And yet, by most accounts, he hasn't stepped back. He's stepped closer. The monarchy, as an institution, is learning a difficult lesson in real time. Tradition doesn't make anyone immune. Protocol doesn't pause reality. And public image can only stretch so far before authenticity becomes unavoidable. In many ways, this moment is stripping the institution down to its most human core. A family navigating fear, a system adjusting under pressure, a nation watching not because it's expected to, but because it genuinely cares. There's also a subtle shift happening in how people talk about Catherine. The conversation is no longer about fashion or symbolism or future crowns. It's about resilience, about dignity, about the way she's handled this without spectacle or self-pity. That shift matters. It suggests that whatever happens next, her legacy is already changing. Not built on perfection, but on honesty. Medical advances continue to offer cautious hope. New treatments are being developed constantly. Options exist now that didn't even a few years ago. And Catherine's team will explore every viable path available to her. But medicine, no matter how advanced, can't provide certainty. It can only provide chances. And living in a world of chances requires patience most people never want to learn. For the children, life goes on in quieter ways. School routines, homework, small celebrations. Ordinary moments carefully preserved. Those moments are intentional. They matter. Because while illness may shape the atmosphere of a household, it doesn't have to define every memory. That, more than anything, appears to be the guiding principle inside their home right now. Public support continues to pour in. Not just from the UK, but globally. Messages, gestures, quiet acknowledgments from people who see themselves reflected in Catherine's situation, not as royalty, but as someone facing uncertainty with grace. That connection is real, and it's something the monarchy has struggled to achieve for generations. As for the future, no one inside or outside the palace can say with confidence what it holds. Best-case scenarios exist. Difficult possibilities remain. What's clear is that timelines have shifted, expectations have softened, and priorities have realigned. The monarchy will adapt because it has to. The family will endure because they must. This chapter doesn't end with resolution. It ends with resolve. Catherine continues her fight away from the cameras. William continues to hold his family together. And the world waits not for spectacle or certainty, but for signs of strength where they matter most. Whatever comes next, one truth has already been revealed. Behind the titles, behind the history, behind the carefully guarded image. This is a story about vulnerability, love, and perseverance. And in facing her greatest challenge yet, Catherine, Princess of Wales, has reminded millions that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply shows up every day and keeps going. And that daily act of showing up is happening far from public view. There are no cameras in the quiet mornings when Catherine gathers herself before another appointment. No headlines capture the nights when sleep is interrupted by worry, discomfort, or the weight of unanswered questions. Those moments don't make statements or trend online, but they're where this battle is actually being fought. And they're where her strength is being tested the most. What makes this moment resonate so deeply is how familiar it feels. Strip away the palaces and protocols, and the story becomes one countless families recognize. Plans put on hold. Futures rewritten in pencil instead of ink. Conversations that once felt hypothetical, now carrying real urgency. That's why today's announcement landed so heavily. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest in a way royal updates rarely are. There's also a quiet recalibration happening between the palace and the public. Expectations are changing. The idea that Catherine will simply bounce back has been replaced with something more realistic and more respectful. Recovery, if it comes, won't be linear. There will be good days and difficult ones, progress and setbacks, and the public is being asked, perhaps for the first time, to accept that ambiguity without demanding constant reassurance. Within royal circles, it's been said that Catherine herself supported this more open approach. Not detailed, not intrusive, but real. Because pretending everything is fine takes energy she no longer wants to spend. That energy belongs to her children, to her health, to getting through what's in front of her, not managing how it looks from the outside. William, too, has reportedly drawn firmer boundaries. Media access is tighter. Information is controlled with intention, not secrecy. The lesson from the past is clear. When personal suffering becomes public spectacle, everyone loses. This time, protection comes first, even if it means fewer updates, even if it means unanswered questions. And yet, despite the uncertainty, there is no sense of surrender. Those close to the family describe a quiet determination. Not naive optimism, but grounded resolve. Catherine is not giving up. She's adapting, adjusting expectations, measuring strength differently than before. And in doing so, she's redefining what resilience looks like under extraordinary pressure. If and when she returns to public life, will be on new terms, slower, more selective, more meaningful. And if she doesn't return in the way people once imagined, that won't erase what she's already given. Her impact isn't tied to appearances or schedules. It's tied to connection, to the way she made an ancient institution feel human, to the example she's setting now, without speeches or ceremonies. For the monarchy, this is a moment of reckoning. Not a crisis of scandal, but of capacity. How much can a slimmed-down institution absorb when real life intervenes? How does it balance duty with compassion? These questions won't be answered overnight, but they will shape decisions long after this chapter closes. For the public, the role is simpler, patience, empathy, respect. The understanding that not every story has a neat timeline or a guaranteed outcome. Sometimes the bravest thing is allowing space for uncertainty without filling it with noise. As this story continues to unfold, updates will come when they can. Some questions may remain unanswered. That's the reality of situations like this. But one thing doesn't change. Catherine is not facing this alone. She's surrounded by family, supported by the best care available, and held in the thoughts of millions who see in her struggle a reflection of their own. This isn't a fairy tale anymore. It's something more real and perhaps more meaningful. A reminder that strength doesn't come from certainty, and courage doesn't require an audience. Sometimes it's found in the decision to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. And for now, that's where the story rests. Not at an ending, not at a resolution, but at a pause. A moment where hope and uncertainty exist side by side, where a nation watches quietly, and where a woman, a mother, and a future queen continues her fight, one day at a time.